Alright, what's up y'all, LakerFan here. As you can see by the title of today's video, we're here to discuss what is the most important attribute rating in NBA 2K22 Next Gen. So, in today's video, we're actually going to be doing a tier list of all of the attribute ratings in the game. So as you can see, they're listed how you would see in the My Player Builder, finishing into shooting, playmaking, defense, and physicals. We're going to rank all of these in each tier and see what you guys think as well. Now let me know what your feedback is on this, and let me know the answer to the question of the title. What is the most important attribute rating, in your opinion, in NBA 2K22 Next Gen? Now, me personally, I got a sleeper one, but I'm gonna go ahead and just wait to the end of the video to show you guys that, because it's gonna be in the S tier when you wouldn't really expect it to be. But anyway, we're gonna start from just anything that's revealed in the F tier that I already have the list right here, but I'm not revealing to you guys. So we're gonna go from F to E to D, C, B, A, and S. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you do, for to drop a like, sub if you're new to noties, all that good stuff, and like always, try to 1 to 500 likes. Alright, so our one lonely badge in the F tier is going to be free throw. It's not that I think this is a useless attribute rating, I just think it's hard to compare it to some of these, because obviously when it comes to 1s, 2s, 3s, anything like that, free throw is literally useless. And then obviously for some even role players in Pro-Am or Rec, free throw is also still useless. Like, honestly, my boy IQ, who plays Lockdown for us, I don't know if I've ever seen that man at the free throw line ever for that matter. Tonic, rarely. Just the more of a role player you are, the less free throw becomes important. It is important, however, for point guards, obviously, and centers debatably too, because that's the only people that maybe get down in the paint and get kind of dirty every now and then, get fouled on potential in one place. But it's pretty rare that you even see shooting fouls anymore in this game. It's either it's a super contested shot or it's none at all. It's kind of just how interior defense works. So long story short, I think free throw is obviously a useless rating when it comes to 1s, 2s, 3s, stuff like that. For Pro-Am, depends on your role. Debatably for point guard specifically, you could maybe say it's like D tier or C tier, but I'm never going to make the case that it belongs in the B tier, because I'm not going to lie. As important free throw may be, you could still get away with playing a typical game without it until the other team starts to intentional foul you or something like that. But regardless, it's a super cheap attribute rating. Obviously, any point guard in the game should upgrade it. It's literally as simple as that, but it's not dependent upon a super amount like it would be for other attributes, if you ask me. So you could debatably put this in the E tier, D tier, whatever you want to do. I just think it's going to be hard to compare this rating to other ones, so I want to just put it in its own tier, F. It doesn't mean that it's useless to me though. I just think this is something that's hard to compare with other ones. Alright, so next up we have the E tier. We're going to have strength, post control, driving layup, and standing dunk. Some pretty relatively useless attribute ratings in comparison to some of the better ones here, but it's debatable. I mean, obviously if you play by a certain play style, like if you are a 7'3" center, standing dunk is pretty nice to have. The funny thing is though, I think you could still get away with not even having it. Close shot and just paint mashing is so overpowered that there's not a huge reason to go for standing dunks. Driving layup, it's not extremely noticeable, honestly. I don't really see a lot of people do floaters, acrobatic layups, or anything like that, and generally you're just going to be going to the paint holding up on your stick for quick drops off one, so you don't really need driving layup in most situations. And then for the same reason as standing dunk being low, post control is also low, because again, you don't really need to post people up to get into the paint. You can kind of just find your way into the paint off triple threat or just doing some type of rim run, and then you can just sit below the basket and pump fake. You don't really need to do drop steps and stuff like that to paint mash properly in this game. That's my opinion. Again, I understand for some specific builds, you can maybe make the case. I even myself, like I said, still have 7'3" tall centers with 99 standing dunk that I still use, and I can acknowledge the fact that you don't need to have it to be able to still do that facet of the game. I mean, close shot is a perfectly fine substitute, and that's why it will be higher on the list. I also, like I said, have a really good slasher build that I have 25 three-pointer on. I don't need driving layup to score. If anything, I'd still rather have close shot than driving layup for that same reason of being a slasher, because it's just nice sometimes to be able to paint match instead of driving layup really doesn't do a lot for you. And then for strength, I think strength is still pretty good to have on lockdown builds. I don't think you're really ever going to put it super high though. For most every single build except for a center, I would probably always just minimize your weight all the way down to the point where you get the highest speed you can possibly get, and that's why speed will be pretty high on the list. It's very important to have. But at the same time, when you go super low on your weight and you're able to max out your speed to its best ability, I would still put the rest of your attributes that you have left over into strength. I think it's pretty good for getting body ups on defense. It's also very important for centers, as we know. It's going to help you get worms, help you box people out better, and just in general, you're just harder to push around when it comes to interactions in the paint. So on some Steven Adams stuff, you're going to be a big burly body when you have high strength, but I don't know if strength is the most important thing in this three-point hunting game. I also don't think strength really helps you set screens that much. I think it's just your body frame and how tall and lanky your player is, and just how big your player is just in general. Now, weight does play a factor into that. It obviously is going to make your player model bigger, but again, the bigger your player model, the better you set screens. That's my opinion. I don't think strength plays a big factor in that. All right, so next up in the D tier, we have vertical and mid-range. There are only 2 badges in this category. Now, I just want to let you guys know also, in case anybody isn't aware, I had this series that I did on this channel where I do no money spent with my whole team. So it was me, Tonic, and AK playing with 3 no money spent players, and we had to just finesse our way through the upgrades and figure out what's important and what's not for our certain builds. So if there's anybody qualified to do this stuff, I would like to think it is me. I've seen from my own perspective of playing the game, I've seen from the perspective of my 2 teammates that also played the game with me with that no money spent stuff, and I'm also someone who is comfortable playing on a build that has 25 3-pointer and 2K22 next gen. That's pretty rare at this point, especially when you're like 6'6" or something like that as well. So anyway, next up we have vertical and mid-range as the only 2 attribute ratings in the D tier. Now, I want to explain this a little bit. Mid-range is not a necessary attribute rating for anything to do with centers, for lockdowns, for power forwards when it comes to pro-am. It's a little bit unimportant when it comes to shooting guard. It depends how much you have the ball and how much you're treated like a ball handler. But what it is really important for is point guard, specifically in the pro-am. Now, when it comes to, let's say, 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, park stuff, stage stuff, I think mid-range is nearly useless. It's a 3-point and dunk game when it comes to park. You're either dunking the ball as a point guard, you're either shooting the 3 as a point guard, fading from 3, whatever you want to be doing. You're passing to your corner who's shooting a 3. He's never shooting a mid-range spot up, mid-range like corner shot. And then your center is going to either be constantly pick and popping to 3 or dunking in the paint. It's literally as simple as that. So when it comes to 3v3, 2v2, 1v1 park stuff, mid-range is obsolete if you ask me. 2v2, debatably because it's make it take it, I understand that, but either way, the only thing I think mid-range is good for in this game is going to be for point guards and pro-am. If the defense is playing you super high, you have to take what the defense is going to be giving you, and most times what the defense is giving you is some mid-range fades or mid-range crabs, mid-range quick stops right in front of the center's face before he can step up to you, or if he's playing too high, then you just rim run him. So listen, this is my perspective on it. I understand mid-range has a little bit of value if you're a pro-am point guard. If you're a pro-am point guard and you're looking at this list, you're like, why is this in the D tier? This should be at least like B. I disagree with that. I think you can still get away with playing the game without mid-range. Like, let's compare it to, I'll just give away a little bit of a spoiler. I have ball handle at B tier for also like this list. So you're gonna tell me mid-range is important as ball handle for you, or you may disagree with that and say ball handle should be in the A tier as well. But listen, we're talking about the power of the attribute rating and the need for the attribute rating. I understand it's gonna be hard to put together this list if it's gonna be contradicting all types of different positions and stuff like that, and there's not a lot of criteria to go off of. So I'm just talking about how necessary and needed and desperate you are to run this attribute rating at a high level. And mid-range to me is not that. I think you can get away with not having this, but it's still better than obviously these ones down here. Same thing goes for vertical. It's really, really good to have on bigs for rebounding. It's nice to have on lockdowns for jump shot contests where you're gonna be jumping at people, or just in general, like, I mean, anything to do with jumping, really. Now, I don't think it's that important for dunking, however. You do still need a certain attribute rating to be able to get contact dunks, or in some situations, some dunk packages as well. But to that point, when you get that, I don't think it's really that important. I have a slasher with like 96, 97 vertical, and I get taken out of dunks even more on that build than I do on the one that has like 85. So I don't know what to tell you guys when it comes to that. I don't think vertical is super important when it comes to dunking. However, like I said, it's really, really good to have for chase down blocks and just in general, jumping at people for contests, jumping for rebounds, etc., etc. So vertical, again, a pretty solid, good attribute rating. Same way that mid-range is too. It's still a good rating to have. It's just, again, I think you can kind of get away with not having this at a super high level on most builds, and especially for those that are in the backcourt as well. I mean, for point guards, this rating is obsolete. You don't even need this at all. All right, next up, we have the C tier. This is going to be both the interior and perimeter defense attribute ratings. So let's talk about this a little bit. Why are these rated lower than any other defensive attribute in the game? It is still pretty decently high. I think it's something that you would make the case for. Centers, you have to have interior defense. If you're the paint mash defense guy, you're coming off the corner and you're dropping, you're the drop guy. You're meant to be the guy that has a high enough interior defense. Also for brick wall is another thing that factors in as well. You have to have it around like 88 for gold and I think 95 for Hall of Fame. So that is one thing that factors in for interior defense for centers, but also not to mention, again, you're the drop guy. You have to be able to contest those centers and they're coming down into the paint and going for those slips, and then they're going for the mashes. You have to be able to contest them. Simple as that. Now, interior defense will also still help you get contests when you press Y or triangle for blocks and stuff like that. If you don't actually get the block, you still get a hand in their face. It's going to help if you have more interior defense than if you didn't. It's literally simple as that, right? Not to mention, if people do use the dunk meter in a rare situation, it will make their dunk meter smaller. So if you have a point guard on the other side that's going really hard on that dunking stuff, if you're down there in the paint, it's going to be really hard for him to finish. It's literally simple as that. So how do I feel about interior defense as a whole? I think it's a pretty good attribute rating that deserves its respect and especially is needed by certain positions. Again, for center, super important. For hedge guys like the power forwards, it's debatable. Some people don't do it, some people do. I would advocate to, yes, upgrade your interior defense on power forwards to around like 70-ish or something like that, where you would probably be on a 6'9" metric build with around 70 interior defense, because that's what you can afford to get by minimizing your weight to be able to get max speed. But either way, I don't think this belongs in the B tier with some of these attribute ratings that we're going to be showcasing, and I think it just belongs in the C tier comfortably right here. Same goes for perimeter defense. I'm starting to realize that when we've been running this lineup that we've been doing, yes, people have been hitting contested shots on us, as you guys have seen, but either way, we're still getting contested. I mean, we have a lineup of 2 point guards on the court that are playing our lockdown spots, and they're playing with 78 perimeter defense apiece. They're playing with 78 perimeter D at the point guard, 78 perimeter D at the shooting guard, and then we're running with 3-7-3 centers that none of them have even more than 60 perimeter defense. So honestly, I think you can still get perimeter contests pretty manageable without perimeter D, but you do still want it. It's going to be able to help you get ankle braces and very important defensive like badges like clamps and stuff like that as well. So it does still play a pretty important factor on playing perimeter defense as well. And just in general, you do still need this rating high to be able to get contest. I will say that the difference between B and C tier is not extremely significant. I just felt like it was a noticeable difference between these attribute ratings up here in the B versus these two down here in the C. So let's talk about them from top to bottom. We have close shot, which is obviously extremely overpowered when it comes to paint mashing, just anything. Like if guards are going in for a drive and you have to jump at them for the chase down and then they just sit there below the basket and go up the close shot. Them having that upgraded, as we mentioned in yesterday's video, is extremely important. It's literally as simple as that, or 2 days ago, I should say, for the video. But anyway, then we have obviously for like 7-3 centers or just any big man who's coming off a screen and into the paint. When it comes to the paint mashing and just pump faking and stuff like that, close shot plus fast twitch plus grace under pressure equals just extremely overpowered. It's literally as simple as that. So moving along, we have pass accuracy. I would call this one more of a necessity. It's not overpowered. It's just very important to have on your builds. I mean, you literally can't be a point guard if you don't have any pass accuracy. And if you have 0, that's just horrible. You even still need this at least 70 to be able to get the silver bullet passer. Now, I will say, the pass accuracy is an attribute rating that isn't extremely important. It's more so the thresholds that you surpass to be able to get bullet passer at certain levels, because bullet passer is so important as a passer. Literally as simple as that. So yes, with other attribute levels, you do unlock other different badges, which is still pretty important as well. And now that we mention it too, if you took out those like thresholds that unlock those badges, pass accuracy would be a pretty useless rating, to be honest with you. I mean, if you could just get bullet passer on Hall of Fame with 25 pass accuracy, you could still have 25 pass accuracy, to be honest with you. I feel like the rating itself isn't extremely important. Now, maybe that's because we don't know it though. Maybe we think that all this is important for is being tied into stuff like that, but maybe we just haven't seen enough people with 25 pass accuracy try and come out here and use it. It definitely would have been something interesting to see if the legend reward in 22 was similar to what it was in 21, where people could have 25 steal rating yet still have Hall of Fame interceptor. I don't think it was good for the game, but it would have been interesting to see and really test the power of pass accuracy rating itself. And it would have been interesting to see if people just didn't even upgrade pass accuracy, if it meant that they could still get Hall of Fame bullet passer without it. But nonetheless, this is the game that we play, and you still have to upgrade your pass accuracy to a decent level to be able to get bullet passer on silver, and then you have to upgrade it to 85 to get it on gold. So nonetheless, it's literally just what you live with. You have to have it at that rating to be a reliable passer. Simple as that. For ball handle, this is just a kind of obvious one. I don't think it really belongs up here in the A or the S. You can still get away with having a mediocre ball handle as long as your speed with ball is really good. And you even see it like directly translated in how people make their pro-am point guards. They upgrade their speed with ball all the way up to like 98, 99, sometimes 97. Whereas their ball handle, now that pluck steals aren't extremely overpowered, they just kind of chill at 93 because that's what unlocks every badge except for ankle breaker and unpluckable on Hall of Fame. And there's really just no point in going all the way up to 99 anymore. So it's literally as simple as that. If we were still in patch 1 though, where the game had crazy pluck steals going on left and right, people were really getting exposed for having low ball handle. Like if you came out here in a point guard build and you only had 85 or debatably like the 92, 93 type stuff like that, you were still getting plucked. However, what started that small guard meta of the 5'9s was the fact that you get 99 ball handle, and those dudes were not getting plucked anymore in those areas of the game. So just keep that in mind. Ball handle would have been an extremely important thing. It probably would have been an A tier or S tier attribute rating if that were the case, but nowadays it just kind of chills in the B. All right, so now we have all the defensive ones. We have block, steal, offensive and defensive rebound. We'll talk about driving dunk last, but we're going to talk about the defensive ones right here. So with block, This also translates to Intimidator. It's also something that can still help you get contest on a smaller build or something like that as well. But the problem is you have to have a really reasonable block rating to have a high level of Intimidator, and smaller builds can't exactly get that. So let's just say you're someone who made a 6'9" metric or something like that, right? You have really high perimeter defense. It allows you to get like 90 perimeter D for gold clamps and stuff like that. And now you have 95 block rating as well, which also gives you Hall of Fame Intimidator. The reason I find that build to be so intriguing and so overpowered is its versatility of that sense. You can still get a lot of chase down blocks, and just you can hold your own in the paint with your good block rating as well. And again, the block rating being high allows you to have Hall of Fame Intimidator. I think it goes a long way on both sides of the court, or I shouldn't say both sides of the court, but both levels of the court on defense. For perimeter and interior, to have Intimidator at a high level, it definitely helps 100%. So I definitely value block far more than I do interior defense or perimeter defense when it comes to being a lockdown, or just in general, even a big man for that matter. Now, it's not to say that I would like to live a life where I have 25 perimeter defense or 25 interior defense yet have 99 block. That's not to say that. I would still value upgrading these attributes, but generally you can afford to upgrade a lot of things on a build, and you only have to cut out probably like, I would say 4 to 5 things entirely. So I mean, honestly, if you're making an inside center or a perimeter like shooting center, you still really don't have to sacrifice either of these ratings to be able to get max block. It's kind of simple like that. So that's all I'm saying. I think block is a really valuable attribute rating to have. For steal as well, whether you're like an on-ball lockdown, whether you're playing the shooting guard, you're playing off-ball on the wing, whether you're a corner defender or anything like that, playing hedge especially, I think steal is extremely important for a hedge defender as well, playing the passing lanes to the paint and stuff like that. And just in general for like park and stuff too. Steal is extremely important. It's what gets stops pretty often in this game as well, because sometimes it is hard to contain these guards, and sometimes you get the fluky steals, you get passing lane steals, you get on-ball, like, I mean, you could honestly even get the inbound steals with steal rating being upgraded as well. So anyway, it's a good attribute rating to have, not to mention the higher it is in certain thresholds, like of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 99. You have more responsiveness with your steal attempts, not to mention you can recover from your steals better as well. So when you do tap that X button, you're not penalized as much. If it's 99 or 90 or something like that, you're gonna be able to recover better. You're gonna be able to get back into play even after you did reach a little bit. So it's definitely an important rating to have. B tier is right where it belongs if you ask me. Not really belonging in the A or S, but it's a pretty good attribute rating to have. Now for the reboundings, I was going to devalue offensive rebounding a little bit because from a general perspective, I think it's just known, right, that you're generally only going to have one person on the court that's an offensive rebounder. It's probably going to be your center, the tallest person on the court, and it's literally just as simple as that. Now, for defensive rebounding, you need multiple crashers. You need multiple people who can box people out, get in for the rebound, get their hands on it, because it's literally just as simple as that. You're going to have your corner guy dropping. You're going to have your hedge defender who is trying to box out the center. You're going to have, obviously, maybe another corner defender as well that needs to drop. And just in general, the more hands you can get involved, the more important it is to be like a good defensive rebounder. Simple as that. Whereas, again, you only need one guy on the court to have offensive rebounding, whether that's for 2v2, 3v3. Maybe for 2v2 it's a little bit different though if you're playing double ISO, because if you are a point guard who likes to ISO, whether it's 2s or 3s, offensive rebound is kind of nice to have, because if you do get a little bit of a drive and kick situation, you're going to be driving into the paint, you're kicking out to a shooter who maybe had a big man just drop off of him, and now you're boxing out whoever was defending you, the smaller point guard most likely, or a lockdown, where if you have good offensive rebound, you're going to get involved in that situation. So if you're an ISO player, I think offensive rebound is more important than defensive rebound. If you're playing Pro-Am though, I think defensive rebound is significantly more important than offensive rebounding, unless you're a center, in which case they're both super important. So I was going to initially move O-board down to C with these two right here and keep defensive rebound in the B to distinguish the difference between these two, but I think they're both really equally important when you like weigh all the factors in. So anyway, that is my outlook on both of those. Then we have driving dunk. So really it's as simple as this with driving dunk. There's multiple layers to it. There's like the 65 and 75 that give you the quick drops off one, and then you get the different levels of like silver limitless takeoff at 75, 74, whatever you want to call it. So long story short, those are the smaller levels of it. You could even, honestly, if you want, upgrade your driving dunk to 40 just to get one CJ McCollum dunk package. It's not extremely reliable, but again, there's layers to this stuff. 40, 65, 75. Once you go to 84, you get contact dunks. Once you go to 92, you get all the contact dunks, and you also get gold posterizer. So long story short, there's layers to the driving dunk, and the reason I have it in the B is for that reason. I think you see a lot of smaller guards rocking out with 65 or 75 when it comes to their driving dunk rating, and it pays to have that. It definitely helps. And then you also have, like I said, the slashers of the world, or just people who play lockdown and maybe have a good driving dunk. It's nice for them to have, but The reason I have this in the B tier is more related to the point guards. It's more related to the fact that if you have 75 driving dunk on any build, whether there's a PG, a lock, even your bigs in some situations, 7.2 metrics can still get server limitless takeoff. And it's so nice to have. It literally just speeds up your dunks to the most fast and efficient dunk you can possibly get, and it makes it harder to chase them down in a game where chase down artists and blocks are really, really reliable. So driving dunk, it definitely helps you prevent that situation. And the threat of the driving dunk, if we're talking like 1v1 court or 2v2, is that people have to go for that chase down block because it's their only way of possibly getting involved when you have the fastest dunk in the game. So then when you pair driving dunk with having close shot, it's such a lethal killer duo because then people have to jump for your chase down blocks and chasing you down. And then boom, once they go flying past you, you just hit them with a close shot. So no matter who you are, a point guard, a lock, a big man, if you have this combo right here, it's really hard to deal with for chasing defenders that are behind you. And it's just as simple as that. So anyway, that is our B tier right there. Moving on to the A. And you know what? I had a last minute change of heart. So I originally was going to put acceleration in the A tier with speed with ball because they coincide together pretty well with each other. I mean, literally, it's as simple as this. If you want to move fast with the ball in your hands, it's important to have acceleration and speed with ball. Acceleration is going to let you take off quicker, and the first couple steps of your dribble is extremely important. Whereas with speed with ball, it's kind of the same thing. It's just, it's more of a elongated experience of that, if you will. But what really sets speed with ball apart from acceleration and what makes it more important is obviously the fact that it ties into playmaking badges. Acceleration doesn't really tie into anything badge wise, so that's the only reason I would knock this down to the B tier. Consider it one of the top B tier attribute ratings though. I think it's really just as simple as that because it really does pay to have a fast guard or just anything that's fast with the ball in their hands because it's hard as a defender to keep up sometimes. And when you combine that with the ability to fade as well, it amplifies how important it is to be fast with the ball in your hand because now you can kind of just sprint around the court and people have to chase you super hard. And it's so hard to keep up with too. So speed with ball, again, it's tied to things like obviously quick first step that are extremely important when it comes to dribbling with the ball. So it is a little bit more important than acceleration. But either way, both of them are extremely dominant in the sense of the game's meta and how it's like playable and stuff like that as well. So now we have 3 of these left over. So it's kind of obvious, right, which ones are going to go where. And you're probably wondering, like, Laker, you're out of your mind if you think stamina is an S tier attribute rating. Well, let's talk about it. Again, I was the one who was playing no money spent and stuff like that as well, right? And when I was coming out here with a low stamina rating, it's impossible to play the game. It's literally impossible. And you're probably someone who takes stamina for granted because it's so easy to upgrade and it's so cheap, which is another reason you should even upgrade it just in general. It's so affordable. It doesn't even cost like 1 overall point toward your build on the road to 99. And the thing with it is, again, I mean, if you're someone who's going to be cutting corners on stamina, you're going to feel it. You're going to pay for it. And it's at the expense of something that, like I said, was so cheap. So think of stamina as like breathing in real life. It's the most important thing that you could ever do. I mean, if you don't breathe, you're done. It's literally as simple as that. And with stamina, if you don't upgrade it, you're done. You can't play the game. It's literally as simple as that. You're never going to be able to get away with having 25 stamina. In this game, at least. In last year's game of 2K21 Next Gen, it was possible. You could definitely do it if you had, let's say, the Gatorade purchase and stuff like that, and you still had your workouts done, etc., etc. But that was for centers, and even at that, I had a build that was like that, and I still paid for doing it. It still wasn't even desirable. This game was completely different. You need stamina, and it's so cheap to upgrade, so why not do it? So, to answer the title of my of the actual video right here, what is the most important attribute rating in NBA 2K22 Next Gen? It is debatably closely stamina. But I will say the #1 most important attribute rating is going to be speed. I don't think you can ever get away with playing this game with no speed. Even at this point, we have 7'3" centers that have 61 speed, and it's definitely like, you can feel that it's really fast, but I can't even imagine hopping out here on a build with 25 speed, or for that matter, even if you're like playing on the lockdown position. If you don't upgrade your speed on a build, you're kind of tripping in most situations. The one build that it maybe makes sense for is going to be like point guards and stuff like that, because it is very hard to balance out all the attribute ratings that you need to have extremely high, and speed doesn't really factor into dribbling with the ball in your hands. It's only for off-ball movement. But speed is the key physical ability that literally lets us play defense, just in general. I mean, we wouldn't be able to play defense with no speed. It's literally as simple as that. Whereas the offense would be able to play with no speed because they have speed with ball. So, long story short, you have to have speed as a defensive player. You have to have speed as a physical, just running up and down the court type center, where you're going to be trying to get from corner to corner, or you're just like running to the paint. Your slips, it also matters for as well. Whereas acceleration doesn't actually matter for anything to do with you playing defense or off-ball offense or anything like that. It's just with the ball in your hands. So for speed, again, it's so extremely important from lockdown perspectives to even guards having it at a decent level for fast breaks and getting out on the breaks. Centers, you have to have this as well to be able to compete in the defensive aspect of you maybe getting exposed when you get stuck on smaller guards, or even for just rim running, like I said. So anyway, speed is the most important attribute rating in the game, in my opinion. Now, the most dominant one is going to be three-point rating. And some people might say that three-pointer is more important than speed. From me and my perspective as someone who has played with no three-pointer and just 25 three-pointer, I could get away with not having this. I think it's definitely doable. Now, there's only a certain amount of people on the court that can get away with doing this. I think it's limited to like one in almost every court that you play in and stuff like that. So if you're playing 1v1, you can get away with having 25 three-pointer. If you're playing 2v2, only one person should ever have 25 three-pointer unless you're going with like a super toxic paint mash offense where you're going to be throwing up hooks and the other guy's catching rebounds and stuff like that. For 3v3, only one guy cannot have three-pointer. And in most situations, he has to still have three-pointer. So for 3v3, I would debatably say maybe 3-point is the most important attribute rating, but for Pro-Am, your center can get away with not having this. It's pretty simple. I mean, if you're 7'3", you're super tall, you can dominate with the paint mashing and rebounding, like the O-boards and stuff like that. You're a reliable defensive player when it comes to dropping out the corner as well. You really don't even, I don't even know if I would desire to have three-pointer anymore. I mean, guards, it really like relies on your guard driving and attacking the paint super consistently for you to ever even use your pick and pop ability if you are shooting big more than like 2 to 3 times a game. I just don't think it's worth in most situations. But regardless, it's extremely overpowered and extremely important to have at a high level on your point guard, your shooting guard. When it comes to Pro-Am, your spot ups need to be there for spacing as well. So it's pretty obvious that these are the two most important attribute ratings in the game, but some people forget about stamina, man. I'm telling you, some people really sleep on how important stamina is and how affordable it is too, man. So anyway, let me know what you guys think as far as the most important attribute rating in the game. Let me know if it's any of these three right here. I think these two right here are going to be the most general answers and stuff like that, but I think some people might agree with me in the sense of stamina being a sleeper. But anyway, leave your feedback in the comments. Feel free to just let me know what you think. And if you made it to the end of the video, put attribute in the comments, show support's made all the way through, or put ATT, doesn't matter. But anyway, let's try and get this one to 500 likes. Hope you all enjoyed. None of that, take these, man. Peace.